But I reckon bicycling 20 years ago was sort of like it is now. Then it started to get really pro and professional, and the time wasters got kicked out, and then it's just reverted.
I blame Vulio for that. He's the guy that started doing sections with his visor off and stuff that, trying to make it really high tech and stuff, mate. What happened to the day? Like that stump jumper photo of you before, where you're pinning a corner, flicking a rock out off the back wheel because you're not grabbing a brake, downhill.
Yeah.
That's downhill.
So that was a cross country. There was a downhill section on a cross country.
Well, there you go.
Because when we started, there was no downhill.
No, it was
just
one and all, wasn't it?
You just rode. And you went,
says me who wasn't there. I was just watching you going, oh, look at these guys.
But motorcycling was probably really similar to what bicycling is now. It was cottage, it was enthusiasts. They weren't businessmen. And then they've all gone into that big PS role. And all the tools don't get entertained. Because you just go in there and, mate, you just buy and get out. There's no couches.
Yeah.
You just buy.
It's not Ben the Bike Tech, is it? You can't come in there and have a coffee.
And what do you do? That's what's endearing about you and the small shops, like Moose's and even Andy from Chaos to one degree. He'll get people to come in.
But he likes the people that like to have someone talk to him mean.
But he sells a truckload of high-end road bikes.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
That's the sort of area he's in, Some people do love that stuff. It's like, what do you want? All right, I've got it. Sit down, take it. So tell me about when you got that intense. You're the first guy in Australia to have an intense, right?
I think there was one floating at the same time, but it wasn't the cool one. It was that one with the weird ass shock. That one.
That?
Yeah. So I had the one after it, the cool one. Let's
come on, man. You tell me that's not cool?
The one after was...
That's the granddaddy of them all.
No, the one after was the business. It was only like that thing. Well, they kicked it to the curb. That's why it's hanging here.
Yeah, but everything gets kicked to the curb at some point, doesn't it?
No. But there was, I think, one or two intenses. I was in between contracts, I think, as far as racing.
Off Manitou? Just fresh off Manitou?
Yeah, a lot of stuff's hazy from that era.
Don't want to talk about it or hazy?
No. It's just, you know what it's like when you're in the moment. Like someone like asking you, things stand out. But yeah, that M1 was cool. Yeah. And I remember building it, and I remember everyone just being jazzed about it, and down to like the blue glitter SDG, and a set of White Brothers forks, and I think I just got it finished, and there was maybe a cross-country World Cup out at Doncaster.
Oh, yeah? So
the drug taker, Philip Hergenoglu or whatever, that races Specialised in Cattell.
Oh, yeah, that guy, yep.
And I went out on that, because in those days you could ride your downhill bikes around.
Yep.
Like even though they had...
Well, they were what, 6-inch, 7-inch?
Oh, not even that.
Yeah.
I think that M1 was probably the longest, what was that, maybe genuine 4 or 5, just.
It was an enduro bike before enduro bikes.
Yeah. Yep. And head angles weren't crazy steep. And you didn't have any... Where did you go to practice if you lived in suburbia?
Yeah, well...
I'd go
not going to Gels Park.
I'd go to the back of police paddocks and make stuff.
Yep.
I used to have a trail through Churchill down into where the housing estates are into Listerfield. Or you just go to Yarra Trails and just boost off stuff.
Yep.
So I was basically out of the cross-country track, riding it round, and Adam McLeod from Freewheel was there, taking photos, but like everyone was flocking around to have a look at this M1.
The weird thing about that bike when you look back on it in hindsight is that it's this unbelievable design that still holds weight, still stands up.
Yep.
No disc brakes, man. It's like something's missing there.
Yeah. It's funny at the time because, San Andreas had disc brakes.
The floating pro stops.
Cool stops and that stuff was around. But it wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
It wasn't awesome.
Yeah, those formulas,
blow your mind.
It was almost like, let's not bother about this.
When we basically had a season of formulas, trying to get them to work. Like you do a run at Threadbow, and you'd get to the bottom every practice, and your brakes would be done. And it
took the pads?
Initially, we worked it out, and it took, I don't know how we worked it out, but I think Josh Street.
Oh yeah.
We worked out that the plastic reservoir cap was flexing and inducing air into the system. Now, how the how the proverbial anyone from Europe hadn't picked this up. But you've got to remember, we would encounter this problem with everything, with Manitou. We were using the bikes for their intended purpose, like hardcore.
Yeah.
And we didn't realise, we thought everyone else in Europe or America were doing it, but they'd sell, say they sold this many bikes. I don't know, we pick a number, 10,000.
Yep.
Right? This many would actually get used by race people. Here in Australia, if we sold this many bikes,
and they're all getting
this many were getting used. Like, if you saw someone on a Foes, you go, oh, hey man, there's a race, you're coming out?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. And you would just smash it to bits.
All of a sudden you were mates.
Come on, you were mates.
Yep.
So we were using but somehow we worked it out and we just manufactured an aluminium cap to put it on top. But that was 6 months into a race season.
And you've machined this thing up to...
So we machined these little, I reckon I've got them in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And it just stopped the plastic cap flexing and inducing air. Crazy.
All of a sudden they're working.
And they're working. You know, but then we had the other issues, like, you know, of a normal disc brake at that time. But they were absolutely and positively terrible.
Horrible things.
Horrible. Awful.
I was saying to someone earlier before about, you know, I suppose the inception of downhill in Australia, where you guys had this big open slather. It was like, we're racing downhill, here's the trail, there's the boundaries.
Yep.
It was guys like you in particular that made rules be made.
Yeah,
because you really pushed everything to the point where it was like, this guy's a nutcase, you know? Like,
as a working example, right? First time we get to go to Thredbo, like you can imagine how excited you are. Like you're getting to go on a chairlift. Your dream, your dream, was to race those mountains. And you know, we kept asking the authority, oh no. Finally, we get to go to Thredbo. Just, you know, you imagine them. We get they allow us. You're only allowed a third of the way up the hill, and we're like, what? We're not going to the top. No, you've got to get off there. I'm like, but there's a whole hill. No, conservate. I'm like, really? You know, and then you go to see the organisers or the authorities. Nah. So you're virtually getting off the chairlift, and then we push really hard. Next year we get a bit further up.
Yeah, the track's getting longer.
And then eventually, at one point, we would get dropped off at the top, ride the fire road down to the start point.
Yeah.
And like we're boosting down the fire road, like whoop,
I've seen photos of it, man. It looks
that
crazy.
Wasn't a racetrack.
Yeah.
that was. And we're saying, hey, we're coming down here full noise.
This is our warm up.
Why can't we race that? No. Yeah. I'm like, you know, so
this is a waste of 2/3 of a mountain. Yeah.
And that's why, you know, rebel clubs started like Zygote, and then we started running our own races and just go, hey, we can do it. But there were heaps of people, you know, inputting. Mike Kidd, I don't know whether Mike's still around, Otway Expeditions.
Yeah,
you know, he had a thing called Mosh Roost. So people were pushing the boundaries, but course marking, because quintessentially, you know, you'd have to get them to mark a point and another point, and that was the track. You know, you could be riding over that, you could be riding over that. It's like a pedestrian crossing. It's only as wide as it's meant to be.
Having said that, Phil.
But I did push the boundaries.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, that. A few people have asked me to mention to you about bunting and how you're feeling, what your feeling on the bunting was. Because I know Rob had one idea and you had a completely different idea. If there was clear light between the bunting, that was fair game, regardless if it was suicidal or not.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, and the rules, I was always a stickler for the rules. You know, like you can't check. You know, that's plain and simple. You know, you're never going to do anything crazily obvious, but, you know, if there's bunting there and there's a flag there, well, theory tells you if you can ride it, that's
the straight line, that's the quickest one.
That's the quickest bit.
Yeah.
If they haven't bunted the inside, but everyone's riding around it, and you can ride over it or jump over it.
Alternatively, what you can do is you can put tech screws from the inside of your tyre out. That's legit, isn't it? That happened.
Yeah, so there was a lot of interpretation, and being a motocrosser, you know, it was about picking lines and you know, picking the best line. Sometimes the straightest line might not be the best. There might be a little boost off here. You might be able to slide up the inside. But yeah, there are a lot of people that would change the course, like legitimately would change the course. Now that shit's off. You know, you can't do that.
Yeah,
you can't actually physically move stuff.
Yeah.
But if they haven't marked it correctly, and then another rider tries to change it, well, that's bullshit. They're cheating, not you. If you're riding a course and they move something to try and push you back onto another line, well, they're cheating.
That's totally.
And that would happen. That would definitely happen.
That'd probably make you a bit angry, mate.
Yeah, it'd make you a little bit angry. I was never angry, just passionate. There's a difference.
So, you've obviously ridden a ton of the original Dualies.
Yeah,
without throwing anyone under the bus.
When we started,
what was the shit? What was the worst one you ever rode?
When we started, there were hardtails.
Yeah.
You know, there was no downhill when we started. It was cross country, so you know we all had little specialised, and there were some.
Did you do anything to make them a bit more DH specific?
Oh hell yeah. We do everything in our power because you know it's not like here now. You walk in, you go, I'm going to get a build, and a build takes 3 or 4 days. Like we drop everything.
Yep.
You know, you're not married, don't have kids. You just go right. I'm going to make whatever I've got to make. And because they had connections with Steve Kramer's and they had a machine shop across the road, if the valving wasn't working on my forks, you know, and we're talking about sometimes like fork had 1 inch. If we could eck out 2 inches that was usable, we'd do it. So, you know, we would, and Ronning was infamous for doing, you know, or famous for doing the same things. Ed Verka, we'd manufacture chainring devices, you know, carbon fibre chainring devices. We'd, you know, make chain tensioners. We'd build, you know, track hubs into, you know.
So you're basically coming up with all these cutting edge concepts that are now sort of bread and butter stuff.
Yeah,
but you're all DIY about it, you know.
Well, we had to be. Yeah. You couldn't walk out and go, I want this. Yeah. You're like, I need more travel out of my forks. How am I going to do it? My head angle's not right.
Yep.
So I'd go to the machine shop. You know, particularly like the DBRs I rode. They were cross country bikes. The dual responses. Was super steep.
Yeah.
Cool bike. So we'd go off. We'd manufacture it. Get an aluminium block, you know, made it to a Chris King and insert that into this section here.
Yeah.
And kick the head angle back.
Yeah.
No problems. But then coincidentally, you have to modify some other stuff.
Where'd you get that idea from, like the moto background? Or were you just tamping around with stuff going, well, this works?
Yeah, we just like, this is a problem. Let's fix it. How do I fix it? Okay, well, I know that guy builds that or that guy does that.
Yep.
I'll ring here, let's do that. Yeah, you know, shifters, you know, chain would always come off.
The thing that I find fascinating about all that sort of stuff is that people like me just go, this is the bike, this is how it works. Whereas you're going, I reckon I can make this thing faster by going, you know, putting this in and that in and all that kind of thing. Like
well, you had to because you wanted to beat the next guy.
Yeah.
But there was a fair bit of comradeship about it. Like if you built something, you go, hey man, and you would see, you know, we'd have something at one race. The only thing we really kept secret was probably when we used the metal spikes from one of the races. That was probably
the tyres.
Yeah, that was the only thing that me and Mike really put a lid on because we knew when we turned up, you know, shit would go sideways.
Was that the officials going to blow up at you?
Oh, everyone. Because look, they were dangerous. You know, you've got that many screws hanging out your tyre.
Yep. You
know, you run over someone.
It's probably going to give you some puncturing.
But there was nothing in the rules. Like we read the rules. And we'd gone through, you know, the amount of effort that myself and Michael, different tyres, you know, running tyre liners, Mr. Toughies, you know, flexing, like the amount of effort behind the scenes to do it, but we loved it.
Yeah.
And they were outrageous. They were so fast. Like on grass, you could ride round the outside if you had, you know, the testicles to just go, right, I'm not going to touch my brakes. Because the problem, as soon as you hit the brakes,
they break traction.
Like yeah. So you've literally had to ride around the outside of someone. And I remember at Threadboat, Ronnie had him, he was junior then, and obviously I was senior. And we were downplaying it because we knew that everyone would be up in arms. You know, and consequently we had, you know, it's a closed course, so it's a time trial, so it doesn't really matter. And we'd gone through the rule book, we're like, we're all cool. There's no mention of it. And sure enough, rode around the outside of Rob, like literally.
Eva.
Yeah, and you could it's not that Rob's slow, but you just had to have the faith in him, and it was like this. It was incredible. You could feel and hear them ripping the grass as they went around the corner. Just like, I just can't touch my brakes. If you're going to brake, dead straight up, right? Only problem for me was because the tyre, you know, they have inherent flex as you're turning, and I had a straddle cable because I didn't have disc brakes. One of the screws would flex over and just nick the straddle cable. So by the time I get to the bottom of the run, I had no rear brace. So you're coming into the pit section and just like people are trying to stop you and you're just like, whoa.
Stinking hot straight through the lot of them.
And then of course people were posing for photos with the bikes, and they'd come up, and this one young guy comes up, and he sort of pushed himself against it, and there's like all these little blood holes, not big ones, but just all the way along. And we're like, and sure enough, Martin Whiteley or someone comes over and, you know, is like, nah. And I'm like, well, you need to show me where we're not allowed to do it. But of course, before we got to the finals, we got...
Please don't take those things down to run again. Yeah.
Which was, you know, that stuff was infuriating for me personally, because, you know, you work within the parameters of, you know, what you're given. But we were always pushing for more exciting courses. You know, everything, you know, myself and others, we were trying to make the sport better. You know, we wanted, you know, obviously, you know, the money that was entitled, because in certain races meant to have certain money, and you turn up sometimes and you win, and they go, oh yeah, the check's in the mail, mate. You never see it.
Yeah.
And that's terrible.
Or you get a white on's a pork chop that you're never going to use.
Yeah, and we used to say that. You know, there's 200 sport riders.
Yeah.
And you're giving these guys some tyres. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, where's the money going?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of time we'd question that and we'd push it. But as far as courses, we want exciting courses. You know, like one year we got to race Magura Pines, and it was just a pro section right at the top, and it was amazing. It was just steep and gnarly and fast.
Was everything a DH course was meant to be, eh?
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, line choice, and you know, when we got to race in America, it was, you know, their courses were just fantastic. You know, they went right to the top. They'd have pros only sections. You know, we did something in the Iron Horse Classic, and it was genuinely only pros could ride the top bit.
Yeah.
And I loved it because I love the speed.
Yeah. Well, that would have played to all your strengths, because, like, as far as loose units go, you sort of had that stitched up, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was to my detriment as far as, you know, winning a race.
That was the thing. That was your reputation. When I first got into mountain, it was like, Phil Catton will either win or crash his balls off. One of the two.
Yeah. And it did. It used to frustrate me immensely because, you know, I wasn't unfit. You know, I was probably a little bit bigger, like more solid than I am now. But, you know, I would watch, you know, and I used Rob because Rob was quintessentially everything I wasn't. You know, if Rob was
right.
white,
You were like the
black.
polar opposites, weren't you?
Yeah.
What was your favourite track? Worldwide.
Oof.
You did a fair bit of travelling, a bit overseas, eh?
Look, to be honest, it is an easy answer because I spent a lot of time there, and you know, it's hard to not sound cocky about it. But
you'll sound cocky, mate. I love it. The fans
Vermont.
demand it.
Vermont, Mount Snow.
Yep.
Yeah, it was an amazing track. It was towards the end of the Norbis series, and I think it might have been a World Cup. But we were based there 3 or 4 days prior, but it was an amazing track because it had everything in one track, like big, wide. I mean wide. It came off the chairlift and was like, you know, to the middle of the road to here, the first section down this huge
just a freeway, yeah?
Yep, and then it would go into this beautiful loam single track where, you know, the light had changed and you'd be hitting loam, dirt that you could eat, you know, just and then big, long, fast sections. And because I'd been there a couple of days prior, you know, like that was the end of my US season. So, you know, there was a drawing on the wall of the course. Like I got every line. And I'd been hanging out with some Haro guys, Jed Fox and some other fast guys. And I still remember I was practicing and the US guys had heard that I was going pretty quick there. And I think Herbold was there. And he's and he's a nice enough guy, you know. Still to this day, I'm amazed that he won a world championship. He must have been very cluey about that
Some
day.
people just have fall into their lap, man.
Because he wasn't amazingly fast.
Yeah.
He was good, but he was like to win a world championship. It's amazing. You know,
consistent.
But I remember he said, I'll tag him behind you. Now, the day prior, Jed had come with me, and Jed said, look, just take it easy. I know you've been practicing. And I sort of went 80, 90%. And like Jed was like 2 minutes behind me at the bottom, and he just pulls out and goes, holy, what have you been doing? I said, mate, I've just been living here. The bike's set up, everything's perfect. There's some rad lines.
What were you riding?
I was riding a Manitou DH. So
hang on a minute, that's like your nemesis bike.
No, it was a good one. It was a beautiful one. So it was about 1.5 inches longer in the rear end.
Yep.
We were having elastomer issues at that point that you're going so fast. And hitting the bump so hard, you were just smashing all the elastomers.
So there's nothing left at the bottom of the course.
So there's nothing left, and pretty much we'd been complaining to the US prior to the season about getting it fixed, and they just kept fobbing it off. Like, And then when I turned up, the Manitou support guys were like, are you joking? I'm like, mate, have a look. Rear end's collapsed, and you have to get a spoke in there and pull out all the elastomers and put fresh ones in. And they were just like...
That was in the fork, yeah?
In the rear end.
Oh,
It was a reverse section.
Because that was a fork, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a reverse fork. But it was a cool bike. It handled, head angles were great. You know, I'd been on it a long time. You know, it was macked out. You know, I had a front track hub with a Sagino tension disc in it, and you know, it was a cool bike. And I've been
3 inches,
maybe for lucky.
Yeah, if you hit something big, yeah.
But once they worked out that I was genuine and I was beating their team riders, they were more than happy to help. But the problem was the hardest elastomer was a fake elastomer. It actually didn't move.
Yeah,
so I couldn't use
it. Was just like a block of
it's just a brown block.
Some kind of bush, yeah.
But Herbold said, "Oh, you know, can I jump in on a run?" I'm like, "Yeah," and like, you know, I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna."
Right, you're going down, mate. Yeah, check this out.
So I let him in the front for a little while, and then we're coming into this big, fast sweeper, and it came out, and it had this single track, and there's a big light transition, like it just went into this deep soil, and I'm like, you know, it's coming out to a braking area. I'm like, mate, he's going too slow. So I'm just like, whoosh, just straight up the inside, like on the wrong angle, and just hit this berm, and then just whoosh, 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 and then out. And then I've literally had enough, like it was only probably a minute, and I've pulled over, parked the bike really quick, and just like this, you know, just
Nothing
down there, just waiting for him. And he's just pulled over a nice slide, because he was a stylish dude. He goes, mate, he goes, are you serious? You know? But to cut a really long-winded story short, race day came, skies opened, it was snowing at the top.
Yeah.
I didn't even race it.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Because I was heading home in 2 days. There was no way, like Jamo, and look, there's part of me that wishes I had raced it, and Herbold won.
Yep.
But it was a 2-run format, and for me, I can never put 2 runs together.
Oh, so it was like your aggregate score.
Yeah, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Yep.
Like Cully was world champion that year, and like he couldn't even put 2 runs together.
Yeah, right.
But and Jamo, who was travelling with me, said, look, Phil, he goes, even if you win here, no one will actually care, because it's the most mud-induced race, and obviously running glasses, it was a big issue.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I didn't have contacts at that point.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'd have to have goggles, I'd have to have tear-offs.
Yep.
So, you know, an 8 or 10 minute run, it was, you know. So the big part of me just had to suck it up, and because we were flying back, everything would have had to be spotless or clean. I just watched. But it was an amazing course. It had everything that you would dream of, like just, you know, at the bottom it turned into a slalom course, and to have a chairlift that was a high-speed chairlift, not like the gay chairlifts we have here that just like...
One of them ones that pick you up and then boost you up the hill.
You're like at the top, and you're just like... But I remember that starting
like
straight...
8-minute runs, you need something pretty quick. But.
This starting straight, you would have loved it. Like, so there's a worn line where everyone rode, but there's like grass 40 metres out, and there's this nice... And it was smooth. And so I practiced it once or twice, knew it was cool, and there's no spectators up there, so, you know, when I did a special run, I could just
open it up.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, I suppose, when you're riding hills with that sort of altitude, is you've got sort of almost 3 different sections, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like you got that barren top section where you can open it up, and then you're into the trees, and it's that single track, and then down the bottom it's that sort of crowd pleaser area where you can do what you've got to do, man.
But it was generally my favourite course. I mean, Big Bear was cool, but it was open and barren. Here in Australia, obviously, you know, we were talking about it earlier, you know, one of the courses that we helped build, Narbathon, was always...
Yeah, Narby,
It was just ace. You know,
Some of them still hold water, man. Like, that's still pretty cool. And Big Hill out at Beauty.
Yep.
That's rad, that joint.
Yeah, it was a lot of pedalling. So
heaps of pedalling,
But yeah, there's some... I mean, we're lucky that we have good courses, but to be able to just continually, you know, do sessions at Vermont was amazing, because, you know, our house wasn't far.
Yeah.
I just up on the chairlift, do 3 or 4 runs, do some modifications to the bike.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do too much. Like,
there wasn't a lot to tamper around.
You know, it was a bit like that famous saying that we all know as athletes, you know, like you'd always just go, oh, one more run. And that one more run, when you're thinking that...
That's when you break yourself?
Forget it. Bring it, haul it back in. So I just go, great day, come home, make some notes in my diary about tyre pressure and whatever.
Come out of it on a high note and go back.
Yeah, and Jamo would go, man, I saw you on the hill. And, you know, it was good because, you know, a lot of the US people, you know, were like, wow, you know, we saw you in practice. You just, you know, you're going really well. It's good. And I had some bad luck. You know, I'd been at Iron Horse Classic, and, you know, we were late to the start, me and Missy Giove, we were late to the start run, and that was that episode where she ended up spitting and got banned for a year. You know, and I was sort of pulling it back because, you know, I wanted to race.
Yeah.
And then they let me race, but I didn't get a time. And then, you know, Miles Rockwell won, and he was a little bit of an unknown then, you know, and then I think Simon said, oh, you don't want to know what your time is, you know, and I'm like...
Well, because you destroyed everyone.
Yeah, but I took some massive chances, and the reason that I was late was I'd done a pre-run in the morning just to get myself in the zone because it was gnarly. And like I had some moments like the back wheel was
up.
And I punch it.
Yeah,
I hit these rocks so hard. Like we're saying with the equipment, you know, there was always something that would break or fail. Like you go, okay, cool, I'm going to get a puncher, so you put a heavier tube in, and then something else would break, and like a wheel, like you were just continually trying to fix the
this
bike.
Perfect setup.
And then the courses would change. Like
Yeah.
you'd have a gravity-fed course, and then you turn up somewhere, and there's an uphill.
Yeah.
And you go,
So you're pulling your sort of 60-tooth ring off that you've had custom made for the course, and all of a sudden it's irrelevant. Yeah.
But it was good. It was. They were great courses. But yeah, Vermont, it was incredible. I loved it.
So back then, I suppose it was, less controlled in that, you know, these days you turn up with the bike, you tune your suspension and away you go, because they're all the kind of textbook courses now. Is that fair? Do you reckon?
Look, I'm not immersed in that that as much. You know, what I do see though, like there's still a heap of creativity.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that the jumps are there. You know, like we pushed hard to have jumps, but the people building the courses didn't really know how to build jumps. You know?
They didn't know how to make them so that you could hit them blind.
Yeah,
you know,
like that gravity fall. Like,
nowadays,
I see places like Whistler, and I go, wow.
Yeah,
how could you not get good? Riding that stuff every day.
First run, you can hit those jumps and know as you're leaving the lip that the dude that's designed it knows exactly what you're going to do and where the down ramp needs to be.
So our stuff was just plonked.
Just random stuff, wasn't it? Yeah.
You know, the only thing that we probably did, Bacchus Marsh, Bald Hill, I don't know whether you ever got to race there.
No.
But, you know, we got a bulldozer in. To help shape the course.
Yep.
And the feature was a rifle range. So you drop down this rifle range, and then there's a perfectly shaped tabletop at the bottom.
Yeah.
Which sounds great, but at the end of a downhill run with people oxygen debt.
Yeah.
So the crashes were phenomenal. Like guys were scraping their face along the ground. I'm like sitting there as an organiser just going, whoa. But we had a way around it. Do you think anyone took it?
Of course not. You want the glory shot.
And there's, you know, shots of the crowd there, and if you were really good, you come up down the hill, and we had to put a berm in to slow people down, and then at corner, and you could pre-jump before the lip, over the lip, and then just land perfectly
and then carry
at the top,
momentum out of the down ramp.
And I looked, because you just like this, and then whoop. You know, if you actually tried to launch, you just flatline.
You're gone,
but it was a lot of fun. And that said, you just needed people around that understood the courses and how, like you said, how to build the ramps. And
well, it's all trial and error back then, wasn't it?
But I see some of the runs, and there's some great creativity. You know, I love what some of the boys are doing. You know,
it's amazing
to see Sam Hill, and you know, he was literally just as I was getting out, he was just coming in. Like I remember Scott Sharples came to me in my room at maybe Mount Beauty and said, "Oh, I've got a young guy here. He's coming up. He's really good. You know, do you reckon you could fly him a little bit of help with something?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What do you?" He goes, "Oh, it's some goggles." And I was working for Monza at the time with Spy. I'm like, "Yeah, no worries, man. We'll flick him." And he came in, a lovely young kid, and I'm like, "Yeah, here's some goggles, and here's some tear-offs, and you know, whatever you need, mate." And he smashed them. I don't know whether he's under 14 then or under 16. And then I saw for years later, just slowly following, that he's still wearing Spy, and obviously, but that was pretty cool because Scott's a great guy, and you know, Sharples and Michael, you know, what they did in America was phenomenal. You know, there were people like myself and Simon Jamison and Mick Jamison, you know, going in trying to forge into that market. But those two boys went, you know, threw the money out the back door and went, "We're doing it. We're going to use our visas." And they really, you know, they forged a way for everyone else, which was pretty
Well, what
cool.
happened after you guys went over there is there was this huge Australian contingent over in the US that were killing everyone.
Craig Jansen.
Like you opened the door, and then from
Steve
there,
White, these
those
guys went over,
and then all of a sudden you had Rennie and Mick and all that sort of thing. So you've just opened up this big corridor for Australians
and it was good
to go
because
and kill it.
You know, Australians have got a great sense of humour. and we're pretty willing to...
Don't take it much too seriously.
No, you know, if you've got to sleep on the floor, you've got to sleep on the floor.
You've got to burn the carpet so bad.
Yeah, and there was a great time. I was in Big Bear. It was one of the first races, and I'm sleeping on the floor at one of the guys from Shimano's house, and there's this big buff sort of guy, and he's chatting away. I'm like, man, his voice is familiar. And at that time, I was working part-time at Vic MTB, and we'd have this continual video playing of, you know, Answer and Yeti and whatever. And I'm like talking to this guy, and he's like, oh, Frank, Phil, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, your voice is really familiar. You know, what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm a welder. I'm like, Frank the welder? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, you're on that video every freaking day. I hate your voice. So we sat up till, I don't know, 3 a.m. or talking war stories and stuff.
Yeah.
And, it was pretty cool. And the guy we stayed with, Steve Bimke, who was Shimano, so me and Simon, you know, we'd always have, occasionally we'd have some rent-a-car things, you know, and we took the rent-a-car up the downhill course as far as we could after all racing was done. And we're coming down, we're just laughing. We had another guy in the car as well. And I see Steve, and he's a pretty solid guy, comes running out at us, you know, in this open section. And I'm like, oh boy, we're in trouble here, you know. And he leans in, he's like, if you guys ever do that without me again, I'm going to kill you. We're just laughing our heads off. So,
obviously, I know a few people that knew you back in the day.
There's an old adage, don't believe the hype.
Oh, well, you tell me, man. Was there ever a day in Mount Beauty where you may have thought that you were Jimi Hendrix?
Look,
does that ring any bells, man?
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff happened that I'm probably thankful that social media wasn't as.
Oh man, I'm spewing.
Yeah, look, they were never conscious decisions about what would go on, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff. Like, I would end up getting blamed for a lot of stuff.
You're the scapegoat.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff.
Ringleader, scapegoat.
There's a lot of stuff I get away with.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, there's plenty of stuff. And look, sometimes we were probably a little bit, you know, over the top.
I don't know, man. It was all part of it, though, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Like,
but if there's something you want to ask me, mate, don't.
Well, I just heard about you setting fire to the carpet once, and you were just like,
yeah. Look, honestly, I can't recall everything that happened, but yeah,
it may not have happened.
Oh, look,
yeah.
You know, I remember once we were having issues with some tyres, and Kelvin, who was the team manager, you know, he's like, no, you got to run these tyres, and they were the most disgraceful tyres you could ever run, like, you know, and it wasn't worth running them, you know. And he's like, no, you got to run them. I'm like, man, these are so crappy. Anyway, I set the tyres alight, and I thought it was like a metaphor for him to, you know, and I presented him to him, mate. I've never seen anyone like, I gave him back these burnt tyres so I can't use them. I thought it was funny. He didn't think it was very funny.
That is funny.
He didn't think it was very funny. Yeah, look, we've had, you know, there's a little bit of some stuff at Threadbow we cut loose, and but, you know, we never killed anyone.
On the upshot, nobody got severely hurt.
No, oh, look, you know, they were never conscious decisions about, like, we're going to go and do this.
Well,
or, you know,
yeah,
they were just,
it never is, though.
Just boys having a good time, and girls. They were always, you know, everyone.
When you're out cutting loose, man, you don't think, you know, there's no premeditation into the larceny, really. Is
but we
there?
did. The Federation obviously didn't like a lot of that, and that's probably one of the only real things that.
Do you reckon that might have affected some of your selections? Do you reckon that's
a little bit?
Phil Catton isn't a household name because he was just a little bit too crazy?
That was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
You know, there was, you know, never to represent my country, and even to be told, you know, on the quiet, even if you go, we won't let you to race.
Yeah,
that's the hardest thing. I never got to represent my country, and I have no doubt that, you know, I would have had a good shot at podium.
And that's the unfortunate thing, you know, because to me, you're the quintessential Australian mountain biker.
Well, they were taking 6 or 7 riders, you know, and there was a time where they said, your fitness is in doubt. I said, all right, cool, what do I have to do?
Yeah.
What do I have to do? And they said, well, you've got to race a cross-country pro race and finish, you know, in the top 10 or whatever. And there was a race that I went to in Adelaide, and it was the muddiest, most horrible thing, and I was running through mud pits to finish that race, and I did. I beat who I had to beat.
Yeah.
Now, you know, they take 6 or 7 riders. I'd won more category ones. I'd done whatever there was no question. And then still to be, with some excuse after that, mate, not many people I'd honestly tell, but I shed a tear on the way home from Adelaide because I knew I was never going to get there. And even when I said, I'll go as an independent, they said, well, we won't authorise you, you won't.
You're not going to get the nod.
And I should have gone. I should have called their bluff and gone and appealed it and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only genuine regret that I didn't get because, they were just playing it safe with a lot of their riders.
Yeah.
And then when you see guys that won the Worlds like Cully, like you talk about Bunting and, there's that famous...
That guy's a lunatic, eh?
He's amazing watching the flesh. Just amazing. And just a wonderful guy.
In 96 and he was just throwing these flatties
seat
down.
bounces. And he was so BMX. It was incredible. Then you had Tomac on the other side.
Yeah, who was that pro?
He was so professional and so quiet. Then you had, guys that were just wonderful characters, Pistol Pete Lonkarovich.
Oh man, he came from the ghettos, didn't he? He was like
hilarious.
The genuine gangster.
We were going up a chairlift and his camelback went everywhere, and we're talking about a big, solid guy with stickers all over him, and he's got wet around. I said, mate, you pissed yourself, you little girl. And he spun around at me, and I thought this could go both ways. And he just starts laughing, puts his arm around me, just starts laughing. Something like only an Aussie would say that to me,
and, he's a scary cat.
Yeah, but it was a good era, and because everyone was trying things, there was influence of BMX from Eric Carter and Brian Lopes. And look, I wish I'd pushed through and done another season in the States.
Yeah.
But financially it was just too difficult.
Too hard, well, there's no money.
But I love, that Michael and Scott just went.
Yep.
Let's do it. And they just kept pushing, and they, and both of them are immensely talented. So it was always going to happen for them, which was great.
Yeah.
And the most exciting thing is, when you go to a big trade show. I remember going to Las Vegas for Interbike, and there's Scott's bike on display. In the
that old
stand,
DB.
And you just go, that's cool.
Yeah.
They've got holes drilled in the frame like Swiss cheese to lighten it off. But it was a good era, and people were, enthusiastic and passionate and excited. There obviously was a bad boy, and Simon, who was obviously a confidant in mine and almost like a manager for me, he would cultivate that. He'd make stuff up.
Yeah.
And people would
believe
it. But there was, in all honesty, there was a heap of stuff that we did that was genuinely crazy, and I look back on it and go, wow, we were really lucky to come out of that unscathed. Like Craig Jansen,
setting his face on fire.
Mate, he was a light. He was fully a light.
You were there when that went down.
Like I had his head in the river, that he couldn't breathe, and he's fighting me, he's a big dude, and I've pulled him out, and I watched his face just melt off.
Like slough off.
Yeah, just sloughed off, and then straight back in the ice, and then 10 minutes, once I cooled his temperature, we're back straight into the hospital.
Yeah.
That's, it's pretty amazing
That's a
stuff.
high point, isn't it?
Yeah, or a low.
Low point maybe, yeah.
But,
it's
everything's good. But that was, that's some crazy stuff. Like a Bedford van, siphoning fuel around a bonfire. It just doesn't add up.
Well, like you say, none of this stuff was premeditated.
Yeah, and the Adelaide crew, they were, I shouldn't.
They were pretty loose.
They were fantastic.
The hyper
Loved
crew.
them. I like, brothers and Zolly with Volatile Visions, who's there with his cutting edge footage. And there's a lot of good stuff. But he was the same. He goes, man, I've got that, but I've got to dumb it down. I've got to blur it and cut out all the swearing.
Yeah.
He goes, and you see it, like bang. It's just.
It's still out there. You can find it on YouTube if you go looking for it.
Yeah, Google that. No problem. Fire away. Is there anything else? But we were loose at certain times. But we were still professional. Like I always loved my gear looking fantastic and my bikes. And we talked earlier about cutting off nylons and body armour and full face helmets and chain devices. Everything that we pioneered. Number plates. I was always pedantic about my number plate. Your
helmet was always spotless too, man. Like every time I saw you, it was beautiful.
Yeah, well, you had to look good. Yeah. And that, I'm OCD in some areas and not in others.
Yep.
And particularly, I'd always wash my own motocross gear. That comes, it even comes over to now, like road, like someone come over to my house and like, oh my God, Phil, all your jerseys are folded in the same way.
Yeah, a little bit OCD like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, doesn't everyone fold their jerseys? I'm like, And he's like, no, everyone does that.
Some people just leave him in the car.
But OCD aside, Rob, he's on another level. He's amazing.
Still
like his
is,
garage,
man.
Like I remember to this day, me and Mike were in the garage, and like his lawn's amazing. This is his old place.
I've seen that guy poisoning weeds that haven't yet thought about popping out of the ground.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Very good. But Mike cut my finger. We were mucking around with an umbrella and scalloped it out.
Yeah.
And there's, and I'm like, Rob runs in, no concern about me whatsoever. He's worried about the stain of blood on the concrete in the garage. I'm like, far out, you killed me. But it's hilarious. We spoke earlier about him being anti-me, and I think we were both very similar. We both love the sport, and Rob still has that passion. But we're both trying to move the sport forward.
Yeah, it was definitely a case of yin and yang.
Yeah, and it would frustrate me because the results would come out.
Yep.
And everyone would come up to me and high fives and hugs and go, man, I saw you in that section. It was just incredible. Coming through your big drift and there's rocks coming off.
Yeah.
You're like this, and they're like, Rob just came through. Rob had beat me because he was smooth, he was fast.
Yeah. He didn't take unnecessary risks where that was your thing, man. Like
So once I pulled it back, it came of age, and the Thredbo Nationals where I got second, it was the slowest run I'd done of the whole weekend. And Craig Shine from Steve Kramer's pulled me to one side. They were my biggest supporter, and he said, Phil, we really need a podium.
Yeah.
He looked at me like a forlorn dog, and I'm like,
all right, well,
but I want to win. I want to win. And then this other one's like, he goes,
reel it in, play it safe, don't do anything.
And he was right, because he wanted me to go to the Worlds.
Yep.
And I'd won 2 Category 1s that season, and a podium at the biggest event of the year in the one day would prove that I'd come of age. So I reeled it in, and I come down. I was like third last rider, and people are jumping around. I'm like, I'm trying to find out my time. They're like, no, you're winning. And then Sharples comes in, like I think he's the last rider.
Yeah.
And beats me. And in Scotty said exactly. Scotty had a tiny little crash, and then just thrown his brain into the toolbox.
And just went.
And that's what wins.
Yeah.
That's what wins.
Totally. Yeah.
So. But it was a good lesson for me that you just bring it back, and you'll podium.
Yeah.
And that's like.
Well, that's what even guys like Chainsaw, rest in peace. He only ever rode to, he used to say 80% of his capabilities.
Yeah.
And just finish the race off, and he would always get awesome results.
Yeah.
But there's something There's something to be said about just throwing your brain away, as you say, and just being spontaneous as you go down the hill and just hitting everything in the moment.
But that only works for so long.
It does, but that to me is the spirit of riding too, isn't it? Like, you don't premeditate anything, you just look at it as it comes, and everything, it's just like a Zen-like experience. Yeah. And that's what's so beautiful about it all, I reckon. Yeah,
I think watching the guys that are just on that edge, that tightrope, that's the amazing thing. You see it in motorsport, you see it in rally car, you see it across a whole discipline of sports, that they're just on this edge, it's amazing. It's like a drift. They're almost just pulling it, and they just pull it in. And you can almost see in their eye a little wink, they look over and go,
I got this.
I got this. But internally they go, whoa, that's close. That's really close. Just pull that down a notch. So